Hello investors, welcome back to Invest Money UAE, where we break down money matters in a simple terms. As financial year 2023 and 2024 is going to end this March, this session is important for those who are planning to file taxes as NRI. Today we have got a very special guest who is an expert on tax and finances. He is a chartered accountant with tons of knowledge, especially about taxes for people living outside of India. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Nishant Singhal from Jitendra Kumar and Associates. He is here to help us understand NRI taxes, which can be pretty tricky. So let's jump in and learn more about NRI taxes. Firstly, Nishant, if you can help our viewers understand who will be considered as NRI or non-resident of India.
Okay. So Vaibhav, there are two aspects when it comes to the NRI status or who would be considered as a non-resident of India. One aspect of a particular of this situation is that, let's say Mr. A has taken a PR or a permanent residency of some other country, or even for that matter, they have taken citizenship of some other country. For example, if we talk about specifically UAE, so I believe that UAE does not offer citizenship, but they do offer visas of 5 years or 10 years and so on.
Correct. Yes.
So a person can be a resident, like a permanent residence of UAE, or say has taken a citizenship, for example, of Canada, but at the same time, for tax purposes, that person may be considered as a resident in India, right?
Okay.
So just because a person has taken PR or citizenship of some other country does not mean that they have an NRI status for tax purposes also. So and vice versa is also true. For example, myself, I'm a resident and a citizen, and permanently residing and a citizen of India, right? But for tax purposes, I may be adjudged or counted as a non-resident for a particular financial year, right? So we have to focus. So the most important thing for everyone is to understand that just because they have taken PR or citizenship of some other country does not mean that they are non-resident. For all purposes, for tax purposes, or for all purposes in India, right? Now coming to who shall be considered as an NRI or a resident for tax purposes. So there is a section 6 of the Indian Income Tax Act, which provides the law and the rules that how a person shall be judged a resident for tax purposes or a non-resident for tax purposes. So there are like 2-3 categories. I will not go into that detail, but on a bucket level, any person who has been in India for 182 days or more shall be considered as a resident in India, irrespective of their citizenship, irrespective of their PR status, irrespective of their filings, XYZ, whatever it is, right? So that's a blanket condition. But it may be possible that a person is not in India for more than 182 days in that particular financial year, but that person, travels to India every year on a recurring basis, right? So let's say in year 1, a person traveled for 60 days. So as per the rule of 182, he is not a resident. In next year, he traveled again for 60 days. Again, he is a non-resident. In next year, again, he traveled for 100 days. Even then, he is a resident. Then in fourth year, he again traveled for, let's say, 170 days. He is not a resident in India. But in the fifth year, let's say he only traveled for 60 days or 61 days. But the preceding 4 years, on accumulation, if that person traveled for 365 days or more, as accumulation of 4 years, right? Yeah. So then for that year, even a 60-day travel would mean that that person is a resident in India for tax purposes. So the idea is, so the idea or the legislative intent behind the law is that a person who is coming, regularly to India, and let's say trying to beat the 182 days criteria, but at the same time is having some commercial angles or some incomes which are generating from India. So the rightful share of the country taxes should reach the country, right? So the government has introduced 3-4 categories in which a person can be judged as a resident or as a resident. And Vaibhav, the most important part is that this particular testing we have to do for every year.
Okay.
It is not that if in 1 year a person is resident, does not mean that he will be resident in the next year or the next or the year after that. And the same way, a person who is a non-resident in 1 year may be a resident in the second year or may be a non-resident in the third year. So this residential status testing has to be done before filing the ITR of that relevant year. And this exercise has to be done every year.
Nishant, like on this income tax website, in profile they ask about whether you are resident or non-resident. So even if we not mention over there, there will not be any fine or something for not updating that status.
Even if your profile status is coming as resident, but you correctly file your return as non-resident based on the data available with you, right? And you calculated your taxes as per the non-resident criteria.
Yes.
Penalty as such. So what is important is the correct particulars should be submitted in the ITR.
Okay.
But at the same time, if you can keep your profile also updated, that is a good part.
It should, but it will not make you any harm unless until you are giving correct information in while filing your ITR.
Yeah. What is most important is that the information in ITR should be as per the law of the land and not as per your convenience.
If I just rephrase what we have discussed till now is like any person in a financial year, if he is there in India for more than 182 days, then he is considered as a resident for that financial year, and incomes will be considered taxable on that financial year. And the cumulative, if 4 years he is residing in India for more than 365 days, then also tax residency status will be residence of India.
In the current year in which you are doing the calculation, there should be a stay of 60 days or more. Then the criteria of 365 days in the preceding 4 years comes into play.
Okay.
Right. So if it is 59 days, and even if you are staying for let's say 380 days in preceding 4 years, even then you are a non-resident.
Okay. Nishant, let's take some questions from our viewers who are NRI and they have some investment. The first question is Nishant, like he's an NRI currently living in UAE and have invested in property in UAE. He's getting a rental income from that property. Is this income taxable in India?
Okay.
So
no, it will not be taxable in India, but it will be taxable as per the provisions of law in UAE. So
Okay.
So if it is a zero rate tax there, then there will be no tax.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if in some financial year, if the tax residency will change as a resident of India, if he stays in India more than 182 days, then
if we talk about particularly with reference to UAE, right? So let's say in UAE there is a 0% tax on rental income. Okay. But if he becomes a resident for tax purposes in India, then that person's global incomes become taxable in India.
Okay, not just UAE, any other as well outside UAE or outside India, anything.
Or wherever it is. Wherever it is in the world, that global income is taxable. So all that income gets clubbed into his ITR, and whatever tax that he or she may have paid, whether in UAE or Germany or UK or US, so they can claim exemption of that tax from the gross tax liability which gets generated, including the income which they have earned from overseas. Yeah.
Okay. And Nishant, like if he sells this property, like UAE property, and book a profit, and that too like before finally moving to India, he's planning to change his residency, he's going back to India, and plan to stay there or retire in India. So he's planning to sell that property with a profit. So that profit will be taxable in India.
See, the thumb rule is the residential status.
Okay.
Right? So let's say a person sold the property in the month of April 2023, and let's say he sold the property for 1 crore rupees, and he acquired that property for 50 lakh rupees. Okay. So he made a gain of 50 lakh rupees.
Yes.
Okay. Now he moved to India, let's say in July or June or July. And in the current financial year, he stayed for more than 182 days or 60 days. And by virtue of that, he becomes a residential person for tax purposes. Right. So then his global income becomes taxable in India.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Though they can claim benefit of DTAA wherever applicable or any tax paid outside, but for the purposes of calculating the income, that what will be the income which will be subjected to tax in India, they will have to disclose this amount as a taxable income. Whether they can, they want to claim some exemptions based on some DTA, or they want to take credit of certain taxes which they have paid in UAE or anywhere in the world, they can do that.
Okay.
But as a thumb rule, they need to disclose this income, or they need to club this income in their ITR. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Nishant, move on to the second question. So, as an NRI, the person is working in UAE, but also invested in shares of UAE and GCC companies. So,
Okay.
and he is receiving dividend and earning profit by selling those shares. So, do he need to pay any kind of tax on this uh, earning in India, or do he need to mention this thing in his ITR?
No, as long as he is not a resident in India and this income is not getting, either generated or having a source in India, or being received in India, or accrue or arise in India, unless and until any event is getting triggered, India has no jurisdiction over such incomes. Let's broaden the horizon here. See, the taxability is not to be seen only from the India UAE point of view, right? So the residential status, when a person is a non-resident in India for tax purposes, whether he is in UAE or UK or US, has no relevance.
Okay.
So once that person becomes a non-resident for tax purposes, he's a non-resident. And for any income to get taxed in India, the person must have a residential status of either resident or non-resident. And second, that income must have a source or origination in India. For a non-resident, if there is no income in India, and he may be earning like tens of crores or $1 billion, $2 billion outside India, India has no jurisdiction on that money.
Okay.
Right? But the story changes for a resident. So let's say if So if I, being a resident here, invest in your company in UAE, right, and I start getting dividend from that, right? So that income will get clubbed in my income because I'm a resident here. At the same time, if I invest some money in a US company or a UK company, then that income will start getting taxed in India, right?
Okay.
If I am a non-resident in India and I'm earning some income from India or having some Indian income and have a large amount of global income, then my only Indian income will be taxable.
Okay.
So you need to check two things. First, your residential status, and second, the nature of the income. For an income to be for a non-resident person, any income can be taxed in India unless and until it is an income which is either originated from India, has a source in India, received in India, or accrue or arise in India. If that is not the case, it cannot be taxed in this country. Yeah.
Like people here in UAE who are NRIs, they invest in US stocks as well.
That income will become taxable if that person who is living in UAE somehow becomes a resident for tax purposes in India.
That's it.
That's it. Right. So if you become a resident in India for tax purposes, global income is taxable.
That's a golden rule.
Yeah, that's a golden rule.
Okay.
So if there are certain exemptions, that exemption can be taken at the time of calculating the tax, right? But as far as the disclosure is concerned, even if something is not taxable, you will have to disclose it in your ITR and show it appropriately that I have earned, let's say, 1 lakh rupees, but I'm not paying any tax on this income because it is exempt by this rule, by this virtue, or by this the application of this DTA. So that appropriate disclosure has to be made.
Okay.
Right.
And it will this thing is applicable to just property or shares, or is applicable to other type of investments like mutual funds, national bonds, or ETFs. Like if a person as an NRI, he is investing in UAE mutual funds or national bonds or like other ETFs. So I think it's not taxable as you mentioned. Like if unless until his residency is not changing to RI,
Yeah,
and
but
if
investing in like Indian bonds
no, in
or
UAE mutual funds or bonds
again
or
any
anything.
income, any
Yeah.
income for
As
that
soon
matter.
as if he is investing in mutual funds or gold bonds or any ETFs that has source in India, basically. So
Yeah,
that income will be taxable in that financial
exactly.
year.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Mm.
not just the source, it's the three tests. Like it has a source in India, or
Uh,
it is received in India, or
uh-huh.
it is deemed to accrue or arise in India.
India. Okay. And Nisha, during this discussion, you were mentioning about DTAA.
Yeah.
So it's double
Taxation
taxation
avoidance
agreement.
agreement. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can tell our viewer what is this and what's the relationship between India and UAE and share some insight.
This agreement provides certain criterias or establishes certain rules that what income shall be construed to be taxed in this country or what
Hmm.
income shall be construed to be taxed in the other country, right?
Hmm.
So to a large extent it answers a lot of questions, but
Hmm.
at the same time it also creates certain confusions which become
Hmm.
part of tax litigations in India
Hmm.
or respective countries, right?
Hmm.
So the only main thing for an
Hmm.
individual
Hmm.
is that the benefit of avoiding double taxation, and these convention also helps that, for example, if a particular income you have
Hmm.
paid taxes in country A,
Hmm.
right? But as per DTAA or as per the law of the other country, country B, that
Hmm.
income was to be taxed in country B, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
country B will give benefit or exemption to the extent of the amount of tax you have paid in country
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Nishant. You have simplified the concept of NRI taxes and cleared few points. Do you want to say something to our viewers regarding the filing of ITRs or any things which they should keep in mind because this financial year is going to end?
So Vaibhav, I believe that while filing the ITRs, the any person for that matter, and
Mm-hmm.
I follow the same practice for myself,
Mm-hmm.
that you should do tax planning and
Mm.
not try to find ways to go for tax
For
evasion, right?
yes.
So as long as you are doing ethical tax planning, the
Mm.
government is also very responsive and appreciates a good tax planning.
Yes.
But if you adopt means to avoid
Mm.
paying taxes and you try to make interpretations which suits you,
Uh,
right? And maybe in short term or short run you might get some refunds, or you might take some refunds, but
uh-huh.
in the long run that will create problems for you. So
Mm.
I would only suggest everyone to follow the law of the land and
Mm-hmm.
help the government of India by paying your due taxes so that a great nation can be built going forward. Yeah. So
Yes,
that's
yes, yes, yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Nishan. Thank you for your time.